Okay, once again, my apologies. We usually don't get a conflict with the cookbook club. We usually start, 15 minutes apart, and it's okay. So thanks for being on our season 2 program, the Refuge of Witnessing. And for those, well, they can't see it. If you're not live, you can't see the chat. So um, why don't you just give us a brief bio, because this is a little different because people aren't attending live. So just give us maybe the highlights, and then we'll dive into the topics.
Yeah, I K Iver, and I was born in Mississippi, and I'm a non-binary trans poet, and um, I've had publications. Um, you can find everywhere on my website, K um, Lee Lee Iver Iver.com. And right now I'm the Ronald Wallace Poetry Fellow for Wisconsin Institute for Writing, and that'll be over in about a week. Um, and this fall, I should be in Taos, New Mexico for the Helen Willitzer grant, residency grant for 3 months, um, just writing. So that's about it. Um,
Great, great. So just to dive into our topics. So what does refuge mean for you?
um, well, my poetry is a lot about, it deals with severed belonging and, ideas of safety. Um, and it complicates fixed ideas of home. Um, so I refuge for me is has to be um, reframed not as a place necessarily, but the possibility of feeling at home and safe in one's body.
Hmm. No, that's nice. That's very nice. Um, so how do you, I think obviously the last couple of years with COVID and everything else that's gone on, do you see people still, I think, yearning to find more refuge? Because you're talking about it's not as it's about the body and not a geographical place. But do you see people, I guess, more seeking refuge, or do you see them kind of coming out of hibernation and trying to re-engage the world?
Oh, they're definitely trying to re-engage the world. I think, you know, no matter how, safe we've tried to be. I think those of us, including myself, who took the quarantine seriously and actually quarantined before um, vaccines were available, took a toll on our mental health, and the cost has been enormous. The cost on both coming out and seeking refuge has been enormous. I mean, we've just passed a million people who are, the death toll of a million people who are no longer here. Um, so yeah, it's I think that COVID has complicated, our ideas of refuge because one can be too safe, um, emotionally, physically. I mean, we are mammals. We need to connect. We need to touch each
Yeah,
other. We need to look at each other in the eye. And um, while Zoom has been wonderful, a wonderful way to connect with people across the world in ways that we've needed to, it doesn't replace um, finding refuge in one another. Um, it's important to self-regulate, but we also have to co-regulate. And I think in America, especially, one can get really caught up in, the myth of individualism, which is often like stereotyped as the cowboy, but a lot of us, sorry about my siren, I'm right in a thoroughfare in Madison, and it's the street that the siren like goes down every route. But um, where was I? Having a neurodivergent moment. Yeah. Um, but it's even in the most, communal of us, I feel like for that idea is still deeply ingrained that we have to rely only on ourselves to take care of ourselves. And um, I think in that we often forget that we need to co-regulate and find refuge in one another. I mean, societies that do that are the healthiest, you know.
I don't know what that was. Um, no, good, good. Um, so are there some poems you'd like to share with us that you feel maybe to talk on the refuge topic?
Um, well, I would say all of them. I mean, do um, yeah. I mean, I can start with the first poem in my manuscript, um, which is about growing up queer in the '90s in Mississippi, and um, a lot of them are elegies for a trans person who's no longer here. Um, for and that was a first love in this book, and having taken refuge in that connection. Um, so this is called Nostalgia, and it's the title is Nostalgia with a strike through. So there's a line through the word nostalgia as the
Yeah.
title. Right. In the beginning, yes, a garden, as lush as your imagining. Even the grass grows mid oak. In the beginning, the grass and trees and birds are already tired of their assigned names. They consider rebellion. The green blades think of rounding, feathered wings dream of swimming a backstroke. But someone assigned woman beats them to it by eating something edible. In the beginning, in a hospital in North Mississippi, a mother holds her new baby, calls this day her happiest. The baby is you. The mother is surprised you're here with only a heart murmur. She says, having lived through her bloodstream's birth control and later tequila, you must be a fighter. In the beginning, there's much holding. There's not enough holding. In the beginning, a father says you're beautiful because you are. In the beginning, you're 3 years old and crying too loud on the beach because a surprise wave knocked you down and the salt won't leave your mouth. The salt won't leave your eyes, your hands, each fingerprint. In the beginning, while you're still walking down the shore, still crying, a father slaps you on the thigh. Hard. You stop crying in your purple one piece. Here, a beginning, a small house on a wooded hill where dogwoods bloom when they're supposed to. If you're wondering what the cardinals would do for you besides moving bright color around, you're 12. If you're wondering what parts of life are survivable, you're 14. There, the beginning, a boy, fully clothed in flannel and denim. He tells you, only you, that he's a boy. You understand. He knows nothing of your uncertainty that lip gloss makes you a girl. He might not understand. In the beginning, he looks at you the way someone must have when you were born. Here, in the forest, the body, the other body, a ripeness both of you can eat, but somehow shouldn't. A fruit bored with sinless afternoons and aching for teeth.
And where did you grew up in northern Mississippi?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was the town?
Tupelo. It's, um, my house was a mile and a half from where Elvis was born.
I don't know. Is that good or not good?
For me, it was great because Elvis also, believe it or not, dealt with severed belonging as well. He was the weird kid in high school. He had no friends. Um, yeah, he was also very poor. Um, and, even after he got famous and um, made it big, Tupelo wanted nothing to do with him. So I know a lot of little anecdotes about that. But when I was growing up there, I thought, well, if this, poor kid could, be born here and come out like Elvis, like maybe I'll be all right. You know? So he was a kind of a healing archetype for me.
Yeah, I think every caterpillar has to find its own way to be a butterfly.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's a good analogy, but I think, yeah, I think everyone has to, well, I think everyone has the opportunity to become more of who they are. I guess that's what's great about life. Um, so is there another poem or two you'd like to share?
Um, sure. Let's see. All right. This is a poem um, that's later in the manuscript. It's toward the end. So the manuscript kind of goes through a grief process, and this poem is about feeling safe in Madison, Wisconsin. It's the first town I've lived in where I felt safe, um, just walking down the street, and it's about the kind of whiplash, of being a first millennial and seeing so many changes
Yeah,
um, toward in attitudes toward queerness. Um, and it's called Missy, who's the subject of my elegies. Missy. Missy asks me what the 2020s are like. Everyone loves white queers now. In Madison, Wisconsin, I have met the trans people who own a bar and a bookstore. I have shaken their hands. An 11-year-old from my queer youth club says her hobby is trans liberation activism. Some of us still die. More of us still want to. Undergrads are performing 90s nostalgia. I saw a freshman carrying a boombox playing Boombastic. For half a second, I thought it was your red Bronco. I saw the stoplight where we danced from our bellies like Shaggy. This is a trauma response. Ford reissued the Bronco last year. The drivers are exactly our age. From the back, I can see flannel and baseball caps turned backwards. Strangers have read poems about you and published them in national journals. Strangers have read poems about you and offered me a fellowship to live in Madison, where I've never felt so comfortable around strangers. At a reading in town, a lady with frosted hair said thank you for bringing Missy alive. You would love the lakes here. When I look up from my campus desk, I see sailboats. I hold many people I don't know responsible for your death. They love us here now. Right now, they love us here.
you're finding uh, Madison, Wisconsin, to be a good place to be.
Yeah, I mean that's what the poem is about.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's nice. That's nice. Uh, Good. So once again, I apologize for our technical difficulties. So a little, it's too bad those people that came to listen we're not able to reconnect with them because we don't have registration, so we don't know who. They just people just show up,
Hmm.
from the Zoom meeting and thing like that. So maybe share something about witnessing. What does witnessing mean to you? Uh, how do you see it in your life or in your environment there?
Here?
Yeah, yeah, witnessing. I guess for me, witnessing is a privilege. I think it's a
Yeah.
privilege when you pay attention,
Yeah.
but I think there's so much. I think there are a lot of distractions. So I think at times it's hard to sift through all the competing, visual and auditory elements or printed words that either prevent you or distract you from witnessing. So I just wanted to get your take on what witnessing meant to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think our attention is being stolen from us. I think Silicon Valley has learned how to make a casino out of our phones, and um, it's really too bad. Um, I mean, I don't like that I have to have social media accounts to promote my work, because having them makes me want to check every 5 minutes, to see what kind of attention it's getting, and that's really, you know, unfortunate. I know I'm not the only one. Everyone is struggling to like leave their phones alone and like, um, get out of their notification spirals, and so. Um, I don't know. I think as long as we're in that struggle, it's going to be really difficult, because that stuff is activating our dopamine receptors, and dopamine wants more dopamine. And it takes a lot of restraint to battle that. And I mean, studies have shown that when we're in the middle of a task, or we're in the middle of deep focus on something, and we check our email, we check our phone, it takes 20 minutes to like redirect our focus, which is actually 23 minutes. So I've made it a practice lately to meditate and try to get more gray matter in my brain, and um, and to just sit in parks and just look around, And when I'm writing, I put my phone in a phone jail and I lock it up for 3 or 4 hours. And I'm like, it's okay if people call, it's okay. And my writing is much better for it. Um, I think, time is probably our most precious resource. I mean, the older I get, the more I feel that way. And our attention has a lot to do with that. And I was a journalist when I was really young. And when I say really young, I mean like 23, 24. And I did that for 4 years, and I watched, you know, it was around the time we got our iPhones. And of course, I didn't get one, I think, until maybe the last year. So maybe 2009, 2008, 2009. And, I watched it slowly kind of, make its way, this sort of lack of attention. And as a journalist, though, you're paid to witness, you're paid to um, look at what's around you in a very, very deep way. And you're paid to ask questions that will provide, fruitful discussion. And I was a city journalist for the city beat. So I, went to a lot of city council meetings and supervisor meetings. And it was, really boring stuff for um, a young person who wanted to be creative, but it was really good for me. It was good for my focus. And it made me see how civilization is built from the ground up, which is really, I think, good for anyone who wants to be involved in their communities. And then I realized, I was a journalist during the rise of the Tea Party, and I realized I'm a little too opinionated, and this stuff really affects my personal life. Like, this stuff is like integral to how I live my life. And I had to shake hands with CEOs and politicians who, thought I didn't exist. And that was really difficult for me. And now, as you're right, John, I think witness is absolutely a privilege. And I wanted so badly to be a journalist of my own life, to be able
Yeah.
to get attention to things that have happened to me. And I became a writer because um, I looked at writing when I was really young, when I would say a teenager, as the opposite of gaslighting, as a way to say, this happened to you. This happened to you, and you felt these things, the actual opposite of things I heard growing up from my parents and other caregivers. So I'm going to read a poem from that time, from a poem where the speaker is looking back on a time when they were 5 years old, and they're witnessing all these things that they're going to become, for better or for worse. It's called 1987. 1987. When my mother's body said America. When a police chief stopped our Mercury to ask her on dates. When her body said a woman is only a woman if she's beautiful, and a beautiful woman cries in her dress when her husband leaves. She cries all night, all 90 pounds of her, both thumbs and index fingers, failing to trace the fat her husband referenced on her thighs and arms and belly. She listens to the rub in Tanya Tucker's voice and unties her magenta dress at the shoulders. unzips the side, and floats across the room, floats in place. Even the body has forgotten it's a body. Its bright lipstick comes off with grease. The face, pinkened by the vanity's mirror's light bulbs, says it's not pretty without the lipstick, but everyone else says my mother looks like Melanie Griffith. Everyone else says I could too, soon. Now the toga-inspired dress in the closet. I'm close by, wanting to wear it. I'm 5 years old and I want the ties on my shoulders. I ask her. I ask her again. She says nothing, hears nothing, so I put it on, swish beneath its weight, all 40 pounds of me. Soon enough, I'll have someone to cry for. I'm already learning patience.
Nice, really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, all your poems have a very personal touch, which is, no, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, I think some poems, third person, first person, you know, yeah, we have had some people that have a lot of family in the poems. We just joke for a second. We had a poet on, and 8 members of her family were listening in. Yeah, so it was hilarious. I thought, yeah, talk about your carnival on the phone. That was a carnival during poetry hour.
Oh,
They
wow.
kept swapping stories and going back and forth.
That sounds really nice.
So, how does the creative process start for you? Is there something? Is there some kind of trigger that happens, or is it that setting aside that 3 or 4 hours with the phone off? How do things kind of start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ritual right now, and it always it well changes about every 6 months. Sometimes I'll make tea and be really present while I'm doing all of that. Just turn the ritual into a meditation. I often right now I'm playing Philip Glass when I write for whatever reason. I think because his music is both dramatic and repetitive, just like my brain. So
Yeah,
I think that's a nice vehicle for me right now. Yeah. Somebody asked me after a reading, they said, how do you get into that place where you can write about that emotional place? And I said, you know, I know a lot of people try to get into that place, but I write to get out of that place. um, I write because I'm there a lot. I kind of wake up with a lot of these, words and images, and I need to get it out. I need to get it in some sort of order. Um, I mean, Gregory Orr talks about poetry as the threshold between like order and chaos. And I think that is, the compulsion for me is to try to make some order out of it, you know, the kind of claustrophobia of life, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
uh, very interesting.
hmm.
Yeah, you're right. That was an interesting. Writing to get out of your emotional space when people are trying to write to get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because it's a lot of, again, because our attention is stolen from us so much. I mean, a lot of us have a hard time sitting with our feelings or even accessing them. Yeah. I mean, we're starting to use our phones to numb ourselves, and it's really unfortunate. Yeah.
So, have there been events you've witnessed? And I guess I'm thinking about your reporting days, maybe, or have
Yeah.
there been events you've witnessed that have kind of generated some poetry for you?
Yeah. I mean, I have a poem called Tupelo, Mississippi that's another crossed out, and it's about what I grew up witnessing in Tupelo and then the history of the place that I witnessed without even knowing that I
Yeah.
witnessed it, like the erasure of, indigenous people, the erasure of um, even, black culture in a very, very black state, and then the erasure of my own queerness. Would you like me to read that one? Okay.
Yeah.
It's called Tupelo, Mississippi. I'll go ahead and read it. Again, it has a cross out in the title. Crop dusters have gone missing. Storm clouds missing. Every owl has gone missing. Entire foothills. There are no dogwoods or foxes to miss them. Radio towers are missing. A historical archive has always been missing. Unmarked graves have been missed to death. Downtown is missing. The hardware store where Elvis brought his first guitar. The songs he took from juke joints. Original names for the dirt have been missing a long time. The neighbors have been missed terribly. A gospel just went missing. A gospel took all the blood it needed for its metaphor to work. My lover went missing today. My lover went missing 15 years ago. When neighbors spoke to him, they spoke to someone else. Even now, they speak about someone else. I found his old letters missing from their hat box. Then my mother gone with each envelope blazing in her fireplace.
So here's just another question I ask is, I think in daily life, I think we're reaching kind of this witnessing overload. Maybe I alluded to it before. And, is there a point where, it's like opposite magnets. It's things happen and they're just automatically pushed apart because we can't take it anymore. We can't absorb it. It's almost like, the glass is more than half full, it's overfilled, and there's no way for new things to come in. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about, and you talked about it before, trying to maybe sift through some of the issues and not get distracted. I guess, do you find, maybe some of the friends and people are kind of in this witnessing overload? I'm just wondering if it seems to be very apparent to me, but I'm not sure it's apparent to everyone.
Oh, it absolutely is apparent to me. Yeah, I think especially taking in a lot of news can be a form of self-harm. Um, it was really uncomfortable for me to stay away from the news, having been a journalist and having had, needed to be in and involved in information seeking and information dissemination. Um, but it's been really good for my health, to not scroll the headlines over and over. And a lot of people think they're obligated to suffer, to just take in information that harms them over and over again. And it doesn't. It's not help. It doesn't help you. Um, it doesn't actually help anyone to know that much of the details, um, all day, every day. Um, and we're not. Our prefrontal cortex is not caught up with, you know, um, our evolutionary biological imperatives have not caught up with, how much information we have access to now. Um, so I think it's up to us to decide, and it's a tough decision. It's simple but not easy. It is up to us to decide, how much inner calm and inner peace, um, we can have in our lives.
Mm.
Um, I mean, capitalism makes it hard, really, really hard. I think, especially for those of us working in corporate settings. But for the rest of us, we don't actually have to, um, read every article that's out there and listen to every single news podcast all day, every day. And studies have shown that, the more news you take in, the more you think you need to know, like the more you worry about not knowing enough.
Yeah,
And the less you take in, the less you worry about not knowing. Um,
yeah. No, that's true. That's true. So are there some more poems you could share with us?
sure. Um, I can share some of the happier poems from the manuscript. There's like maybe two. I think, this one also deals with severed belonging, and belonging, its counterpart. This is called Boombox Ode. Um, Enjoy the Silence. After Depeche Mode's, Enjoy the Silence, that song. A landline lets me dance with you. Your torso is not touching mine. Your abundant mouth, close as the west side train I can't hear. My one deck and your two deck are dialed to 98.5 FM without an echo. Let me pretend you're back in my bedroom before my mother found us. You've risen from the pine floor and pulled me up. You want me to stand for this. From our speakers, soft synth, a bass line, a choir reverbing, a guitar riff that rises and falls, asks and answers. If we speak aloud this harmony of fiber wire and radio wave, such a miracle could melt. I can't see your movement, the bedroom you're quiet in. Somewhere, bodies like ours are pulsing under the same pink neon, to the same words like violence break. Torsos like ours are touching, and strangers watch only because they're gorgeous. And here's the very last poem in the manuscript. Because this is a book of elegies, I wanted to make sure that I was in a happy place when I wrote the last poem. The title is Because You Can't. Because you can't, I stand in front of paintings a long time and think about the bones once belonging to you and how Egon Schiele could line a body into movement. Because you no longer have a shape, I've made a practice of nearness. A hawk lets me stroke her mid-flight. I let comets land in my mouth when they're small enough. My lover pushes all their weight on me because I asked. They flatten me into astonishment. Because nothing can astonish you, I tempt what's alive by doubting I could love it more. It's a neat trick. When I use it, raccoons visit often, their fingers closed around mud older than me. Missy, this is me moving on. There's a noon rain to get caught in, and many clavicles to behold. I wish you could see this one, tilting across a century.
I was coughing, so I was on mute. I said, can you share with us what you're working on now?
Yes. I am working on now a new manuscript about queer desire. And it covers themes of excess desire and what can happen in queer relationships when there is like a power imbalance. It's about the idea that queer relationships aren't this escape from patriarchal harm. They're not an automatic escape from whatever we think heterosexual relationships are. Yeah, I'm really excited about this new work. I'm still testing out a lot of the poems in readings, live readings at least. Yeah, so that's the new work. I'm also writing a book of essays about the same subject, about desire and about love as an addiction. Some of my favorite books about that subject are like Melissa Fabos's Abandon Me, and Richie Hoffman is a great poet about excess desire. I think he has a new book called 100 Lovers, and it's not actually about having 100 lovers. It's about like these portraits of people that he loves, and it's just a really lovely book. It's brand new by Knopf in hardback, and in a lot of these books I'm reading about desire, the word addiction isn't used, even though I think they do kind of have that tone.
Yeah.
But in these new poems that I'm writing, I'm using the word addiction. And in these essays I'm writing, I'm using the word. So, and they're often also about, like I said, the power that desire gives the desired, which I'm most interested in. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, because we got crossed with Zoom, we only have a few more minutes left.
oh, that's fine.
So,
I didn't intend on reading those poems for a library crowd, you know. But yeah, but I'm happy to talk about it.
I think I know. I think I owe you a repeat performance due to our technology difficulties and not having people hear you live. I think there are a bunch of people that like to hear live. So you know, we're planning a season 3. So you know, I'd like to have you come back if you'd like to. You know, maybe we need to do we have some. We did a duet. Was it last week? So we do have two, you know, at times 2 people on the program at the same time and kind of go back and forth. So, you know, if there was someone that you know, a fellow poet you liked and wanted to do that, we could think about that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No, so thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
No, I just no, I love the you know, all your poems have a very personal touch. I you know, there's some poems I'm sure you know that you feel like they're talking about someone far away, and that there's not as much of a connection. So um, I like you writing to get out of your emotional space. I like that. I wrote it down. Yeah. And being a journalist of your own life, I always write down a few little one-liners for every program. Yeah, I have a little, you know, just things. But I like that being a journalist of your own life. I think that's a good thing. So Rachel, I think I'm going to sign off here before the Zoom gods
Yeah,
wreak
giving me
their
the 1
vengeance.
minute countdown, unfortunately. Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties here, Kay. But yeah, it was amazing listening to your poetry. It's quite impressive.
Thank you, Rachel. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, you as well. Hopefully we'll be able to have you back here with
Yeah.
us.
Sure.
And Kay, we'll get the recording. When I get it, I'll email you the recording, hopefully later this afternoon or no later than tomorrow morning. And no, thanks again for being on the program. And hopefully, you know, those people that maybe you invited, you could send the link to the recording to and they could hear you.
All right. Thank you so much, John.
Okay, very good.
Nice,
Take care.
nice
All
Thursday.
right, bye.
Bye.